So today we have here all the five panelists are here. We have Shubha Tole. Shubha Tole obtained her BSc in Life Sciences and Biochemistry from St. Xavier's College, Mumbai. Her MSc and PhD are from Caltech, USA. She worked at the University of Chicago as a postdoctoral fellow and then joined Tata Institute in Mumbai, India, as a faculty member in 1999. Tole has been the recipient of Infosys Science Foundation Award for Life Sciences in 2014 and the Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Award, India's highest scientific honor award by CSIR, Government of India. She has also been awarded the Research Award for Innovation in Neurosciences by Society of Neuroscience in 2008, the National Women Bioscientist Award by Department of Biology of Government of India, the Swarna Jayanti Fellowship and by Department of Science and Technology, and Wellcome Trust Senior International Fellowship in 1999. She has several publications in leading international journals. Tole also actively engages in public outreach via workshops in schools and colleges, and has chaired as well as presented Cafe Scientifiques organized by British Council. We also have Shubhra here. Shubhra Priyadashini is an award-winning science journalist and is currently the chief editor of Nature India. The Science is the biggest platform of science news in India. And Shubha also covered science alongside politics and sports and fashion, films, crime, natural disasters in mainstream Indian media for over dozens of years. She chose to focus on her first love, science, launching Nature India in 2007. Shubhra worked as a journalist in major Indian dailies, the Times of India, the Indian Express, the Asian Age, the Telegraph, India's premier news agency, Press Trust of India, Down to Earth magazine. She also worked briefly for Observer London. Shubhra has been on the British Chevening Scholar, Robert Bosch Fellow, an IREX UNESCO Fellow. She has also won many awards such as the Kavli Media Prize, BBC World Service Trust Award, and Panos South Asia Media Excellence Award. She has been on the panel of many international committees and meetings on science communication, such as the World Conference of Science Journalists, the Board of Studies of Transdisciplinary University, Bangalore, India, the Review Group of India's National Council for Science and Technology and Communication, the expert panel consulting India's Science, Technology and Innovation Policy 2020, and she's also the executive committee member of BRICS Young Scientist Forum. Through Nature India's many workshops and outreach activities, Shubhra trains Indian scientists in science communication and presentation skills. In 2017, Shubhra mentored the first ever Fame Lab India competition organized by British Council in India to hunt for the best science communicators and presenters across the country. She now helms the Nature India Wellcome Trust Science Media Fellowship for India, the only one such in India. She also trains health and medical journalists as Fact and Fit and Google News supported initiative to combat medical misinformation. We also have Sahana here. Sahana Sitaraman is a graduate student at Dr. Vatsala Tirumalai's lab at NCBS Bangalore. She studied developmental neurons and neural circuits in the brains of zebrafish. Besides research, she's quite passionate about science communication using both written and visual medium. She writes for Massive Science and Prelights and has also started making scientific illustrations recently. She's a strong proponent of scientific outreach. She feels that even though we make new discoveries and inventions, not much of that knowledge reaches to the youth. Besides making science accessible, we also need to make it comprehensible. It is a field of curiosity and joy, and she believes that it should go beyond the ivory tower and be made accessible to the stakeholders. We have Alan here. As Alan mentioned, he's a medical doctor and postdoctoral researcher at Department of Neurobiology at Harvard Medical School, working in the field of sleep medicine, more specifically the effects of sleep deprivation on health, the gut-brain axis, and blood-brain barrier during sleep. He, with his colleagues from Croatia, are working on Hot Science Balloon project to create a dynamic, open, inclusive, and globally active scientific community with the aim of exchanging ideas and inspiring scientific advancement. They are involved in writing research paper summaries, interviewing Nobel laureates, and in future they hope to organize virtual scientific meetings, networking events, as well as collaboration meetings. You can find more about their work on www.hotscienceballoon.com. And lastly, we have Dr. Felix Bass here. He is an associate professor and science writer based at Central University, Punjab, India, where he is heading the Department of Botany. A BSc gold medalist, he was educated at University of Guindy campus and IIT Bombay. After earning PhD from MEXT Japan as a Japanese scholar, he has been serving India government of India since 2010. When he took appointment at Central University of Punjab, Dr. Felix Bass served as an invited in-residence intern with the President of India as an inspired teacher for 1 week of Rashtrapati Bhavan, New Delhi in 2015. Among many discoveries that his team at CU Punjab has made include 3 new species of marine macroalgae. Dr. Bass is a known science communicator in India through his writings, outreach talks, YouTube videos, fostering critical thinking and scientific skepticism. Dr. Bass served as an elected National Core Committee member representing biology and medicine at Indian National Young Academy of Sciences 2020. Subsequently, he founded India's first Young Academy open to all fields of knowledge, Young Academy of India. He is also a member of National COVID-19 Task Force by INSA and Indian Science Response to COVID-19. Dr. Bast is also involved with Swayam, a flagship online education program by Ministry of Education, Government of India, as a course coordinator. In addition, he is an avid cyclist, a runner, frequent blood donor, and an advocate of zero waste and zero carbon footprint lifestyle. So, with the introductions being done, we can start with the main thing we are here for. So, I'll delve into the questions. I'll start with Dr. Shubha Tole. So, what does science communication mean to you, and how is communicating neuroscience different from communicating other sciences?
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here and really appreciate that you folks have put together not only a really nice conference with amazing talks, but also the very, very important area of science communication, which I think sometimes gets left out because we scientists are very happy talking amongst ourselves, and it's up to people to figure out how to understand our very complex science. So I'm delighted that you've broken this and you've put science communication as part of your sequence. So kudos, much applause. What is science communication and how is it particularly different in neuroscience was the question. I suppose everybody who has come here has some idea of science communication in their minds. And I would say, whatever you think it is, you're right. You're right. You've come here out of an interest in this broad topic. And I don't think any of us should be defining it for you. I can share what it means for me. In the absence of a data cable from one's mind to another person's mind, you have to use language to communicate. And any enterprise, any human enterprise, is only enriched when that communication is enhanced or facilitated or invigorated by discussion. So communication is a two-way street. So it's the job of the scientist to communicate their work in a way that a discussion ensues, no matter what the level of the audience is. This is something that I think we need to include in our training programs. Students are often very happy to talk about complex techniques and procedures, and we sort of admire complexity. That's why we're drawn to science. But just because something is very difficult for you to understand, that doesn't necessarily mean A, it's good science, B, that it's being communicated well. Because you should be able to communicate anything in very, very simple language. So what is science communication? The ability to exchange information in a two-way fashion between a scientist and anybody else, absolutely anybody else. That is the goal. And really the onus is on us scientists to do it. How is it particularly different for neuroscience? Okay, this has sort of two answers, okay, because we get two responses when we declare I'm a neuroscientist. Oh, neuroscience, the word brain is immediately you get this transformation on the person's face. Oh my God, brain, as if immediately by announcing I'm a neuroscientist, I'm immediately going to go and attack somebody's brain, or I have the power to do it. I mean, really. Possibly the best person who has the power to change somebody else's brain is oral historian, or somebody who can beautifully communicate poetry or prose. They'll affect your brain much more than any experimental scientist could. But that's one response. The other response from people who enjoy science have a sort of how do you say it? So here's science communication at work. I'm trying to crystallize my thoughts. People who enjoy science have some idea of what they think neuroscience is. Okay, it's either emotion, or it is depression, or it is dreams, or it's learning and memory, or it's it's some experience they have had that they somehow know is connected to their brain, and they want an answer to that. And they want you to talk about that. Okay, your challenge is first to get over yourself and not necessarily try and shove your science down their throats. If they wish to talk about motor neuron disease, or if that's what's burning their minds, some child they know is afflicted, or some Alzheimer's, it's your job to say what you know about it and draw your limitations and say, this is as much as I know, but I can help you find out. Let's go and do a Google search together. Okay, so we have to get over our desire to, sort of push our science down it, because whatever people think is neuroscience, that's your entry. And once you've satisfied that curiosity, then you might say, hey, but this topic links beautifully to something that I read. Now, it again doesn't have to be your work. We have to get over the idea that science communication is about our work. But I read this very cool thing that connects with this topic. So, shall we talk about this and see what your ideas on it are? So again, two-way street always. And then maybe you've little curiosity about something more than what they were concerned about. So those are the two challenges for neuroscience. One, that people are freaked out by anything neuro just because of the name. And the other, that people have their own ideas of what they think brain science is. And you have to accept it and address it before you can move on.
Thank you, Shubha. So we'll now move on to Shubha for her inputs.
Sure. Yeah, very well put, Shubha, already. So for me, I think on a very lighter note, science communication is bread and butter. I mean, I stopped doing science communication for a day and I get a salary cut. So it's not like I can afford to stop communicating science as long as I'm doing what I'm doing. So that was just on a lighter note. But if I have to really come out with my own specific detailing of what science communication might mean, I would think it is, to me, the unpacking of science in a way that makes it accessible, accountable, and usable. All three of those things. And of course, you have the all the usual suspects of it becoming being relevant, impactful, or something you and I can talk about for 5 minutes makes for a great story. So that's a great thing that I can communicate to anybody in a manner that they will understand, etc. So accessible to people, to anybody who might be interested in understanding how science works, accountable to people who pay taxes to support publicly funded research or science, and usable either through incremental gains of knowledge or by immediate application of that knowledge in science. So all of that would mean I've done my job well as a science communicator. Science communication, of course, helps bring all of these things to fore, apart from, as I said, the usual suspects in terms of benefits. That is, informing, educating, entertaining at times, and impacting lives. So, all of those put together would mean, for me, a good uh, science communication capsule done well. Um, how is communicating neuroscience different from communicating other sciences? Well, I cannot afford to say again that this science is better to communicate or that science is not so good to communicate, but I would like to think that all communication, be it science, like you mentioned, I've done politics, sports, economics, even fashion and page three. So all of that communication is, it follows the same basic tenets that we have just discussed, apart from also being loyal and understanding the pulse of its audience, whoever its audience is. I would think science communication is not much different. And then we are bringing in another layer of specialization, that is neuroscience communication. So if I were to view this on a broader canvas, I would say, well, not much of a difference. But having said that, I want you to consider the following. If I were to draw a parallel in the physical sciences, I would think of astrophysics and astronomy. You know, they hold that special enigmatic place in science. People are way more thrilled to read about planets, cosmos, the pale blue dot, or and enigmatic unknown of the universe. And it's because of this mysterious aura of astrophysics that more people are interested in reading that over, say, other physics or chemistry stories. Similarly, neuroscience, like Shubha mentioned, holds the promise of unraveling the deepest secrets of our brain and the most complex and awe-inducing of organs in the body, right? So of why we are set apart from the rest of the animal species, or of why the fascinating sense of consciousness, is something that differentiates us. And so the who am I factor and where do I belong, these questions that one can ask in astrophysics in a more broader context find a reflection in a very specific sense in neuroscience. So, communicating neuroscience, to my mind, is easier since it can be made very, very relatable to the audiences than, say, condensed matter physics or mathematics, which needs greater skill and extrapolation of the science to be able to be made lucid, so to say. So, yeah, I think that's the basic difference for me in communicating neuroscience over communicating any other science.
Thank you, Shubhra. That's quite insightful. I remember there was a paper coming out that tried to link the cosmos and brain structure recently.
Yes, absolutely.
So we'll move on to Sahana. What do you what do you think is science communication to you, and how is neuroscience communication different from other science communications?
So Shubha and Shubha have very aptly covered most of what all of us think about science communication. But to me, it's anything from talking about my PhD project to my friends or somebody who's from a different department and doesn't understand the intricacies of the day-to-day experimental details, or what my results mean, or what even is a zebrafish and why do I look at it. It's about communicating my research to them, to other peers who might be interested in knowing my research and extrapolating and connecting their own work to it, to my parents uh, uh, who try very hard to understand it, but and put in a lot of effort also when I'm trying to communicate, and they don't want to they tried their best to understand what I'm trying to communicate, and to all and the rest of the public. And it's about basically it's about giving access to science to anybody and everybody who's interested in knowing about it, and to also maybe uh, make others who are on the edge curious and more interested in knowing about it. And but in a not in a way which uh, makes them not in a complicated way which would discourage them from uh, putting in that extra effort to delve deeper into the subject, but in a more comprehensible and curiosity driving way which would make them want to put in the effort and know about more things associated with it, do their own research, and thus cultivate the culture of science just beyond the scientific community. So, and it's to me the most important thing that I try to achieve with my science communication is to convert convert people from passive observers to people who actually question what you're doing, question why this was. Even if they're not scientists, they have nothing to do with science, they're given the ability to question how science is done and why science is done a certain way and why certain questions are important. And yeah, basically that. So that's what science communication is means to me. And about communicating how communicating neuroscience is different from others, it's different and the same. So it's like Shubhra said, it's it works for itself because it's fascinating by nature. People always want to. It's the inherent mystery of the brain, the fact that you can't see what's happening inside, but you know that it's the thing controlling all of your movements, all of your thoughts, emotions. So it's intriguing by nature. So it's easy to capture attention and grab attention but again, that's not important. You need to sustain that attention by communicating whatever you want, the research that you want to communicate, in a way that makes them leaves the audience with more information that they came in with. It shouldn't leave them confused and like, oh, I didn't get anything. I left with lesser than I came in with. So grab attention and sustain it. Sustaining is the difficult part because it's a little more technical than, say, so the most stark comparison in biology I can do is maybe ecology articles, which people tend to understand in a more faster and easier way, because they can see animals and they can see how climate change is affecting things around them. So it's easier them to relate to it. But technical details of a neuroscience research paper are slightly more difficult to communicate. But good metaphors can go a long way in explaining stuff. So yeah, same and different. That's all.
Thank you, Sahana. So I'll move on to Alan quickly. I'd like to thank Alan for joining in the middle of the night, though. So
It's fun. it's a new experience, but I'm glad to be here. You know, one of the things, first of all, thank you very much for organizing this, and this is not just like saying thank you because everybody says thank you, but I think one of the things that are extremely important for young people, especially young people, is to find motivation and to be proactive in terms of science communication. What I love, I agree with everything the panelists said. I think that it's great, and I just like to add on something and try not to repeat the same things. I think what's extremely important in science communication is to be proactive and to inspire other people. What I mean by that, so to be proactive, one of the things that I think is extremely important is if you can actually, I'm not saying every day, but if you're a scientist and you want to communicate science, you have to you have to be proactive and take the role of actually communicating science. Science can be communicated in many ways. We did lots of public lectures back in Croatia about science, about neuroscience, about all these topics, and they're great. But also in the era of COVID and everything, I think these sorts of meetings where we talk about science communication and all sorts of social media and spreading quality information, not misinformation, because information can be, some facts can be manipulated in an incredible way. And we as scientists and everybody here really needs to communicate with the public quality facts and real true facts. I know it may sound like we're like, what's he saying? True facts? Aren't facts the same for everybody? Unfortunately, they're not. I think they're not. And that's one of the things. So being proactive and taking a proactive stance and communicating the right thing, the quality information in objective and scientific way to the public, and also in a simple and easy to understand way, is extremely important. I'm not a fan of scientists who cannot simplify things because some of them think science they're doing is extremely complex. It cannot be simplified. I'm a true believer that really, if you deeply understand the subject and the topic, that you really can simplify it for everybody. And I think that's extremely important. The other thing I would say, apart from being proactive in any way possible, okay, just changing your community. You don't have to change the world, but just making a small step in your community through communicating science is extremely important. And I think actually by acting locally, you're just you're contributing in such an incredible way. I thank you for it. If you're doing that, I thank you for it and congratulate you for it. The next thing is motivation. I think young people, especially, we've seen that through organizing conferences back in Croatia, and I'm just going to name one regarding motivation. So we organized a conference where we brought basically 4 Nobel laureates in Croatia, to talk about their scientific life, their stories, behind the scenes stories, and so on. But the point of that conference was not actually for you to hear their stories, because you can see their research online. You can go just Google it and whatnot. But we wanted for them to inspire young people. And I think that sort of communication, when you ignite the spark in young people, it lights up a flame that can, basically, glow. I would say glow, and poetically glow in the night of scientific misinformation. I think that's extremely important to motivate young people, because I've seen so many examples of that when you, with just a few right words, motivate young people who can then make a difference in society. It's incredibly important, through science or through any other way. And regarding the difference between neuroscience and communicating neuroscience and other sciences, I think all sciences are really equally important. And I firmly believe that not one science is above, the brain is above everything and that sort of stuff. Not a fan. of that. I think everything is important, but the difference is, I think people who are not into science, who are not working actively in science, I think have maybe that aura of neuroscience as something, whoa, like the brain. You know, some of the panelists mentioned that, and I agree. You know, with the brain, I think your one of the tasks as a science communicator should be to kind of demystify that aura that, you know, the brain is something. I think every science is important, equally important, and there's nothing. Of course, the brain is a special organ, but I don't think there's something extra special about communicating neuroscience compared to biology or something else.
Thank you, Alan. That is really insightful. And I'll move on to Dr. Felix. He does YouTube videos to communicate science, so that's like a whole different audience. So if you could explain how science communication, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, thanks, Coach, for having me here with me in this exciting session. So I was reading, something about your Project Stimulus and Project Encephalon, with your social commitment and helping underprivileged communities with the skills for brain research. Kudos for that. It's a great initiative. So first question is about the science communication. I totally agree with all the panelists here, and especially Alan also made a great point about simplifying. You know, the communication has to be really simplified. I'm remembering a quote by Albert Einstein that if you can't explain simply, you don't understand it well enough. So that is, I think,
agree. Sorry, absolutely
yes,
agree. Sorry.
That is exactly what I think that is a core principle of science communication. You know, if you cannot explain the things simply, then it cannot. And again, his another very important statement is everything should be made as simple as possible, but not simpler. Again, that's a catch, not simpler. There is, the simpler, but not simpler, in the sense that you should not over extrapolate into the pseudoscience. The territory comes often in science communication. And of course, Oxfam's razor concept is really apt for the science communication, because all things being equal, simple solutions tends to be the best one. It's a guiding principle for everything, the philosophical principle. For example, this morning I'm reading the new development in the COVID-19. This is a human recombinant soluble ACE2, HRS ACE2 treatment, which does great works. And the explanation of this article compared this angiotensin converting enzyme 2 as a doorknob. Look at that metaphor. It's really powerful. That communicates the essence in just with the doorknob as an ACE2. It's great. That is exactly what we really need, the skill from as a good science communicator. So and good, all the good practice of the journalism also. Subra was talking about, definitely all the good things about the journalism automatically applies in good science communicator too. For example, yesterday I was reading an article in a reputed scientific, popular science magazine about copper and aluminum cooking utensils and how it is really important because of thermal conductivity. It's a long article, and nowhere it mentioned the toxicity. Aluminum is a well-known neurotoxin, and even AD, the Alzheimer's disease and copper connection is also not, but it's not mentioned. So then what's the point of writing the junk? You see, it's really, really important. According to me, purity, perspicuity, precision, cohesiveness, brevity, and even dialectics and rhetorics are all part of the good science communication. And if you ask me who are the great science communicator, Shubhra said about Cosmos. Yes, exactly. Carl Sagan or Stephen Jay Gould, the evolutionary biologist, or Bill Bryson, Richard Dawkins, or even audiovisual, the YouTube, the David Attenborough, great communicators. So according to me, the science communication is, and it's an art. It's like a storytelling. I think it's an innate ability that not all scientists have it. So they're not really a good science communicator. And forcing them to write popular science articles doesn't solve the purpose. And also many good good storytellers lack the scientific training. And if you ask them to write the popular article, if it's not really self-driven, then definitely post-truth is a big problem, because lies spread faster than the truth in this age, the space age, you see. So the good science communicator, in my sense, it's a rare breed. You really need a natural good storytelling with sound understanding of the science. So if you ask me like who are the really good science communicating neuroscience specifically, I would say Judith Hortzman. So she's really my favorite author. Like Book of Law, Sex and Brain. Recently I completed, and her new book is also I just completed. It's Healthy Aging Brain, the Scientific American. Or Steven Pinker, the philosopher and cognitive neuroscientist, How the Mind Works. Excellent writer. And now if you ask me, what is it? The second part of your question is, how is communicating neuroscience different from communicating other sciences? A very interesting point. I agree with all of you that it's almost same, but the problem here is that neuroscience is at the intersection of the philosophical conundrums. Simple example would be mind. Not many philosophers really believe that there is something called mind exists, because mind-body dualism is a hotly contested topic. Or the consciousness, you can read a large number of books about what a consciousness truly is, or modularity of mind, or even nature nurture, the Chomsky, the linguist, universal grammar, or the gender, really hotly contested. So our understanding of the neurosystem is really still in infancy, and because of that, there is a huge scope of the wrong misinterpretation and misinformation, and all this, the limitations are a big problem with the neuroscience, I can say, and that automatically lead to a bad science communication, because it's a favorite playground for the pseudoscience advocate. For example, brain waves. Brain waves are, of course, it is evidence-based, but you're extrapolating to stimulate your brain wave for improving your IQ. Yes, there are so many such products available in the market, and if you actually put on that machine, your IQ will be increased. That kind of extreme bogus prepositions, even games. For example, Lumosity, I guess, one of the famous brain game, that improves your IQ. All these are, simply there is no high quality evidence. Another examples would be telepathy, Reiki, clairvoyance, astral projection, and even meditation. Of course, meditation is proven benefits, but there are so many tall claims. For example, recently I attended one meditation session, and the person who is doing this meditation claimed that if you do this meditation, then it can cure the ovarian cyst and even prostate cancer. Come on, there is no proof at all. So yes, so it's really tricky because of our limitations on understanding the neurosystem. There is a tremendous scope for extrapolations and bad science communication in neuroscience.
Thank you, Felix. Yeah, that the problem of pseudoscience is like an epidemic, and especially in neuroscience. So thank you for pointing that out. I'll move on to the next question, which is in a lot of cases, what happens is the science that scientists do in the lab, like, as in it doesn't have the component of pseudoscience, as you mentioned, that also comes in, and some of the people not being as good as science communicators as we would like them to be. So what are the kind of problems other than this that might come up? There might also be probably a section of language, that the science we want people to know, the people talk in a different language, journals publish in English. So there might be an effect of that too. So what do you think? I'll start with Shubhra.
Yeah, sure. So the question you're asking is how does science in the lab get out of the labs and go to reach the lay public? That's what you're asking. Okay.
Yeah, and what are the problems in that?
Okay, right. So, well, there are no two ways about this. Both scientists and communicators have to do their job well for this to happen. It is, scientists communicating science is one kind of communication coming out of the labs, and science communicators going into those labs, or even getting in touch with those scientists and taking that science out of the lab into the masses is another way. So there are two kinds of people involved in science communication. And again, in the second category, that of professional science communicators, there's another category, which is, science journalists like myself or my peers. So all of these people have different mandates. For instance, a scientist who's involved in communicating science to the masses will do it with an audience in mind, or like you said, and there's a question in the question box I can see about why are manuscripts written that way? Why aren't they in the first place written in a manner that everybody can understand? So there's a specific audience these manuscripts are reaching out to. It's the scientific community, and more specifically, that very community of scientists who are in the same discipline. So an astrophysicist or a neuroscientist is actually communicating that science to his or her peers. And similarly, more and more effort is now going into making these manuscripts as readable as possible. At least in Nature, I know of this um, new wave, if you will, of writing an abstract that is comprehensive, that can be understandable by a wider variety of wider audience, not just the discipline scientists, even the wider scientific community, as well as anybody who picks up that paper and starts reading. At least the abstract should give them a very clear idea of what to expect in the paper, and then the paper actually focuses more deeply and more scientifically, more jargon based language inside the paper. So to answer your question very specifically, uh, the way that science can come out of the labs is by getting these scientists involved more with communicators, professional communicators, number one, who know the job, of course, and also to create this bridge between scientists and the masses through the public media or the mass media, where during COVID times we saw many scientists, not just in India, across the world, coming out and writing about COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2, the epidemiology, the virology, in a language that was pretty accessible, pretty understandable. And so here's a case in point for you that if scientists really want to do this job well, there is a way out. And more and more scientists are getting involved in this kind of activity. More and more young scientists are getting involved with people like myself in trying to, coming to me and saying, look here, I want to write about this. Do you think it's something that your readers might want to read? Or do you think it's something that a lay public would be interested in? And then I can tell you that yes, they would be if you did it like this, or if you brought in these angles, or if you brought in even the politics, the social aspects, even the economic aspect of many sciences, right? So there's a way of telling a story that appeals, and our scientists really need to get into that beat of understanding how to tell a story. I'll just end there because there are 5 panelists and everybody has to say things.
Thank you, Shura. So I'll move on to Felix. Felix, what are your views on this?
Okay, so yeah, the point is about the bringing science to the lay public and how to communicate effectively. So yes, Ankush, you made a very valid point about communicating in different languages. Yes, I'm basically born and brought up in a rural village in Kerala, and I still write in Malayalam. My language is Malayalam. So in Kerala, see, we have a lot of popular science magazines in Malayalam. For example, Eureka for primary school kids, very popular. Even now, it's extremely popular. And for example, many of the famous popular science books, one good example would be Carl Sagan's Cosmos. We have translations in Malayalam. I read it when I was in 7th grade, but unfortunately even now that such translations are non-existent in Hindi even, and many of the other languages. So we really need the quality translators who are really passionate on translating good works, plus science communicators in in the regional languages. So the INSA, I recently came to know that I interact with the International Science Academy's new president, and she was telling that INSA is now planning to popularize, spread a lot more attention to popularizing on the regional languages of India. I think that's really, really important. And another really important problem here is something called Sagan effect, Carl Sagan effect. So in the last anniversary general body meeting of the INSA in Goa, I also presented a small presentation on this same problem. So the key issue here is that, can a science popularizer be a serious scientist? That is actually the burning question today. Because, amongst the scientists and amongst the policymakers, a scientist, the imagery is that the person is media shy, introvert, and speaks and writes in esoteric language that no one understands. And mostly, the lifelong bachelor, just like Isaac Newton. So that effect is exactly what you call the Sagan effect. The Carl Sagan was famously a victim of this mentality. Many of his grants to the National Science Foundation were overturned. Because he's very good science communicator, his TV shows were massively popular, and people thought that he's not good in primary research. But of course, later assessment revealed a different picture. And even he didn't even, you're from Harvard, and the Sagan tried to become tenured in Harvard, but he couldn't make it. He had to leave Harvard because of this mentality. That is what the media is now saying. So what is actually the solution for this mentality? See that my solution is actually very straightforward. The popular science articles doesn't carry any weight in the recruitment, for example. It only the primary research articles carry the weight. So why not make it more weightage even for the popular science articles? That appropriate weightage needs to be provided for that too. And also, even the government has introduced several schemes. One good example would be augmenting writing skills for articulating research. The DSD has a fantastic program, AVSAR, but there is a catch. This program is only for PhD and postdoc, not for the faculties or scientists. And why is it so? Does that mean the faculties cannot write popular science articles? Why don't you make it open? That is exactly I campaigned in the INSA meeting as well, but somehow the rules haven't changed. The policymakers are not convinced that AVSAR should be open for the faculties. The writing popular science article and winning the best popular science article, that is only open for the students, and the faculties are only supposed to write the primary research. That mentality, that the Sagan effect is the root cause of all these issues, I would say. And of course, outreach activities, other than few institutes and science academies, not everybody is actually keen on doing this. For the namesake, they do some webinars, but that doesn't actually solve any purpose. And also the scheme, we really need schemes for promoting quality outreach, the science outreach. And of course, the outreach should also look at the less affluent village government school. They're really, they are my favorite place where I deliver the outreach talk. So they really have a lot of issues, the economic issues, less funded places, but we really need some quality program only for outreach in the schools. And yes, and also the citizen science, because that goes hand in hand, the science communication and citizen science, because both are public engagement of the science, you see. And yes, so as the transdisciplinary research. So overall, there is a lot of scope for improvement and fostering science communication in the country.
Can I ask a question, Felix?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
So you were talking about opening up AVSAR to PIs and beyond postdocs. Do you think PIs would really be interested in participating in something like this?
Yeah, why
Given that
not?
how
Yes.
states are, and if I, for one, think at PIs who are not interested in communicating science, no matter what kind of incentive you give them, they are not interested in communicating science. They want to do their research, they want to get their grants, they want to get their PhD students graduated. And I don't know if this is an incentive enough to convert, if it's incentive enough for PIs like these. Yeah.
Yes, Hannah, exactly. I would say this is a kind of a dicto simpliciter, cognitive bias. So generalization, yeah, in one sense that most of the mentality amongst even the young scientists in the countries that publish, publications, most of these publications are real crap. And it serves only two purposes: to get a job, or if you're already in job, help you to get a promotion. So that publishing mentality, publish or perish mentality is a root cause. I definitely agree with you. But yes, there are so many of my friends who are really passionate. For example, one of my friend who is working, I don't want to name him. Yeah, I can name also Karthik. Karthik is from Pune, and he is very, very, so much into the science communication, his language, that is in Tamil. So he writes popular articles in Tamil, and there's so many of my good friends who are really into the communication, but somehow such programs are not open. Avsar, if the Avsar is open up, yes. So those who really want, there is a drive inside. Those people would definitely write more and try to get a prestigious award. Yeah, it's a national award from the DST, much coveted. And yes, why not? I strongly suggest DST to open up this. To the PIs, young faculties, and everybody, even old faculties. Why not? Professors, Professor Tole can write much better than a young person in the neuroscience. I can definitely vouch on it. Yeah.
I just have a very quick observation, and it is that we're talking about Avsar. Avsar is something that PhDs or young students they write a piece. It gets published in a book, which is I don't know read by whom. I'm not very sure how who is reading that book. So when you're talking about communicating science, is it about just writing a popular science piece in a book that has no circulation? And also, if you pick up that book, I came to this because we're talking about Avsar. Otherwise, I wouldn't even broach Avsar. Because if you pick up that book, and I've read, it has about 1,000 articles, if I'm not wrong, or 100, I don't remember. But if you pick up the ones that got the prize, the first 3 or the first 10, and evaluate them as popular science articles. I don't know how many of us who do science communication and write popular science would actually give them more than 2 or 3. And this is not to say that it's the fault of the writers. The outside program actually is built to train these people to write better, right? And so I certainly do not say that the writers are bad. I'm saying that if there's a program like this, which is trying to hone the skill of these young writers, why doesn't it reflect in those writings? And who is reading those pieces? And is this science communication after all? N number of people can come in and join this Avsar bandwagon, but what does it finally boil down to? Who is your audience, etc.? So let's not talk about Avsar as a gold standard of science communication, or in even coming very close to. And I'm sure my friends who conduct the Avsar workshops are going to hate me for this, but it is what it is, and let's not let's call a spade when we must. And so let's talk about Sagan. Let's talk about you know uh, better communication protocols and better communicators. I just rest my case there.
Yeah, I
just like
totally
to,
agree.
sorry.
I just want to say that I completely agree with Subra's points. Yes, I also have read some of these articles, the award-winning articles, and yes, and who is reading this article? That is a very serious question, a very pertinent question, and yes, I completely agree with your points. Over to you, Alan.
Sorry, Felix. I would just like to quickly add. I don't think scientific rank should determine if you want to or not want to write a popular scientific article. I think from students, so from everybody here watching or listening, to professors, to everybody, I think we almost, as scientists, I would say almost, have an obligation, an unwritten obligation to communicate science, to communicate the facts, because if we're not doing it, who's going to do it? Okay, we're the people in it, and I think we should be the people who are communicating science. And here, thanks. And here, especially during COVID times, we should. I'm not saying we really should rely on scientific evidence. Okay, not just on some baseless claims. Okay, and that's why I'm saying. I mean, some people can disagree on this, but I think, regardless, I think it's actually a bit sad if PIs go into themselves and kind of go into introvert mode, grants, publish papers. That's all I want in life. I think that's very sad, to be honest. And I think PIs should set an example for younger people that they write scientific articles, that they communicate science in any possible way. So I'm a guy who is very active in this field. So I would just like to like everybody else to be, just give a small part of themselves to the community, basically. Sorry.
May I go next, because I have something that connects very much with what Alex is saying. So actually, I'd like to address sort of two of your prompts at once. One, how can we reach our science to the lay public? And two, how can we include younger, more inexperienced researchers in science communication? Because what I have to say sort of addresses both. I think we should start young. I think once a young person gets the excitement of having communicated a piece of science, it can be their work, something they read, anything, to somebody who, wanted to know, and hey, they made that connection. Once you get that excitement, it's like a little high. I don't think you'll ever stop. I'd say forget about the old fogies who don't, who want to, do their research, write their papers, and graduate their students. There's nothing wrong with graduating students, by the way. But, let the old fogies be. Speaking as a gray-haired person, it's true that the old culture was that, oh, if you're communicating science, then you're not doing it. Or a little bit, sort of sour grapesy. If you're very, very good at communicating, then maybe, that's how simple your mind is, which is why you can communicate simply. And therefore, your science must not be very complex. All of this is the Carl Sagan effect we were talking about. But I think that if the senior lineup in each institution comes up with policies that make science communication important. Okay, and when I say senior lineup, yeah, I guess that is folks like me. I'm the Dean of Graduate Studies at the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research. Science communication is important to me, but I didn't just start saying it now. I started saying it 20 years ago when I was a young faculty member. And I used to say, well, we should get our students to communicate their work. I, in fact, started TIFR's first science communication course. The works, we use all kinds of tools and so on, and I still offer it every so often. The point is, when the senior folks say something is important, then younger people are going to say, oh, okay, well, then maybe we should do it. And then you sort of start something that builds on itself. So here's my proposal. I think all institutions should build this into their programs. This addresses a question from Bandhan Goyal on the chat. I think as part of your 5-year PhD, you should give 2 science communication talks or workshops or something. One in the school where you did your 10th standard. So, you should go to your school, they'll welcome you back, and you don't have to talk about your science. You should just do a science project, have props, compose a piece of Hindi rap, take this gully boy thing and, morph it into something that fits do something fun, okay? You will touch many minds. And in this sort of thing, once is enough. Somebody hears this and goes, oh my God, and it starts something in their brains. So I think every PhD student should be asked to do one of these and do one communicating your science to your undergrad institution. They'll welcome you back too. So, in a simple way, why it is you did what you did, more your journey, how it is you chose your problem. Young people really want to know because they're in the position of making choices right now. They want to know how you chose which institution to join. How did you choose the lab you wanted to join? Was the reality different from your expectation? How did you set up the problem? What were the difficulties you came up with? So all of this is the making of, in some sense, more than just the story, it's the making of. And the making of is actually really valuable. And if we ask our PhD students to do this as part of their training, first, it trains them. It trains them to communicate. And language, no bar, okay? Do it in whichever language you feel comfortable with. The communication is the key. So it, it tells them it's important. They begin to communicate. They realize they can do it. And then when they become seniors, it's going to roll on itself and it's going to expand. So I request everybody who is in a position to make this happen at their institutions, please try.
I think so. Just a quick add-on. That's beautiful what Dr. Tolle said, and I'm the person that actually did what she said, meaning went back to my high school, did a talk when I was at my medical studies, and now when I finished my medical studies, I went back to my medical school. Okay, gave a talk there. But also one just very quick add-on, I don't think we should actually forget also people who are in communities that are not maybe in spotlights of science, meaning, I live here in Boston, it's a relatively big city, for American standards, but what about people who are living in the suburbs or somewhere else? They may not have access to all of this. And my point is, one of the professors from a very, very, very small village in Serbia, in Europe, basically invited me to give a lecture over Zoom, and I could not be happier to do that, to help that very small community. And so as science communicators, not just communicate science in the spotlights of science in New York, in Mumbai, in Delhi, but what about all these small places and all the people that you can inspire there and change their life, basically. Yeah.
So I'd like to add to that. Talking about access, going to places and communicating is I think needs to be stressed upon, because right now we're in a time where we're very, very dependent on the internet. So for example, this panel discussion where I'm sure other people would also be interested in knowing what we have to discuss, what our views are on science communication, and how we plan to improve upon it. But how many of them have access to internet to listen to this talk? So internet is, other than language, internet is also a great barrier to getting access to science, and it's also because a lot of articles, that written word, visual art, which is published, is online only. Print, I don't know how much of I'm not sure how much of it is in print media, how much of the print media is really accessible. So I don't have a solution to it. Maybe radio is a better solution. I don't know if in like a good radio station which talks about science and calls scientists and does a good job of it is, I know of, is NPR, but I don't know if India has one like that. And that would really, I think it would take off, because done in a interesting, engaging way, it should be a really great initiative. But yeah, other than language, I think internet is something that we need to think about.
I'm very happy that we are talking about village science. I just wanted to, do a pitch here, more like. So I've been doing science communication for almost quarter of a century now. And it's spanned from newspapers to with Nature now, and to a premier news agency, to a magazine, etc. So right now I am in the phase of my life where I'm thinking, what impact has 25 years of doing science communication really made to the people I serve? And very often, very philosophically, when I ponder upon these questions of impact, I come back and tell myself that India primarily lives in its villages. And I haven't really reached those people in all these years. So coming 2021, I'll be doing a series of stories in India's villages. And this is all on video, and I'll be doing it for India Science. which will be on Doordarshan and of course on the internet as well. And I'll be doing podcasts alongside, background stories, video vlog, etc. So what I intend to do is 13 episodes of Village Science, where we are not just talking about how our ivory tower science has influenced villages or not, whether it has reached there or not, but also what kind of jugaad science, which is frugal innovation science, happening in our villages across India. So catch me very soon, beginning 2021, every month, doing village science.
That's
That's
great.
great. Yeah. So
Will
I'll
you
be
be
ending it soon. I'm sorry.
I just want to know, will you be doing it in English or other languages as well?
English and Hindi as of
English.
now.
So thank you for all the great inputs, and it was really an amazing panel discussion. We already over time, and I still don't want to end this, but so thank you all. I'll end this meeting soon. After this, we'll start with IIT Gandhinagar lab tour. So if you guys want, you can stay here and take more questions. You can put down your mm, contact information for if people wanted to contact you. So from this session, what we understood is we are going in the right direction. We just need to know what the directions are and reach out to everyone for science communication. It's not just the job of scientists who uh, have to do this science communication. It's a job of everyone, from starting from students to early career researchers to senior scientists. Senior scientists can change a thing or two in the institutional setting to encourage more and more people to do science communication. And we should reach out to more people in village settings and try to make them understand science in a very layman term. So that would, in my opinion, help get more people interested in science, one. And if more people are interested in science, we can move further with science in a faster motion. We can have people asking more questions, more interesting questions, and that could help science a lot, right?
Then we'll have more interesting scientists down the road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
rockstar scientists.
so thank you all for the great discussion. Have a
Thank
great
you.
day. I thank you, Alan, for joining from so late at night.
I think it was worth it. So being here with these great panelists and other people, I think I think if we got through the message of the importance of scientific communication, motivated some people, I think it was worth my sleep, me not sleeping. So
Have a good night's sleep, the rest of it.
thank you. You
Well,
can
thank
always
you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Ankush, Baba.
Kudos
Thank
to
you.
the Project Encephalon people.
Yeah, very good. Very good initiative.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
job.
do a round of applause, probably. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely
Bye.
to meet you all too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.